I mean, just like every single skill or kind of job out there, like there are physical marketplaces in the world, the voiceovers also has a marketplace where buyers come searching for sellers. So the pay-to-play site is the haven where all of the voiceover transactions or businesses go on.
Hi, and welcome to the Everything Voiceover podcast. I am Tcode, an African voiceover talent from Nigeria, and this is my podcast where I take on voiceover topics from an African perspective. On this episode, I have as my guest Jamaldeen Ademola, also known as Jamaldeenvoice. He is a multilingual Nigerian full-time voiceover artist who has taken his craft beyond the shores of the continent by leveraging on international voiceover platforms to build a sustainable voiceover career. Sit back and enjoy this episode. Hello everyone, so welcome to the Everything Voiceovers podcast, the African perspective. It's me here again, Tcode, ready to give you some interesting conversation on voiceover topics as regards Africa. Now today I have a fantastic guest with me. He's one of the voice talents in Nigeria that I really respect. I've seen him do things and he just came into the industry and he kept making moves. Really, Jamaldeen is someone I like to study. I've listened to him speak a couple of times and yeah, I already said his name, Jamaldeen. So guys, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I have with me one of Nigeria's premium, take it from me, voice talent, Jamaldeen. Jamaldeen, nice to have you here on the podcast.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much, Tolu, for inviting me. I mean, I'm highly honored and well done on what you do. I mean, great stuff, great podcast out there. Well done.
Thank you very much. Well, I just started. One of the reasons why I try to do this is I want us to be able to document our stories as African voice talents. Not just that, I want us to give a lot of information to the common ones and even everyone, every African talent out there, so that you can understand what is going on in Nigeria, in South Africa, in Ghana, and other places like that, and we can learn from each other. So, yeah. Thank you for accepting to be on the podcast, Jamaldeen. So let's dive right into it. Who is Jamaldeen? Let's start from there. I know you to be a voice talent, but behind the curtains, behind everything that we know on social media, who is Jamaldeen?
Oh, thank you so much for that question. My name is Jamaldeen Ademola Hamzat. I actually I studied agricultural engineering from Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria. Wow. Originally, like from Kwara State in Nigeria. And then aside that, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a sportman. I'm a professional table tennis player. Wow. And then I'm an entrepreneur. And full-time, I'm also a voiceover artist.
Fantastic, Jamaldeen. You are a lot of things, and from studying agricultural engineering to becoming a voice talent. Interesting. But I want to know what growing up was like for you in Nigeria. Did you always think that you will become a voiceover talent, or you just wanted to be an agricultural engineer? Because I can guess you're not practicing what you study right now. So what was growing up like for you? First of all, let's start from there.
Oh, thank you for that question. Well, growing up for me, I was born in Kaduna, the northern part of Nigeria. And then I've never known I'm going to end up being a voiceover artist. However, everything that I've done has inclination to like oratory or speaking. And then I come from a family like my father is an Arabic scholar. So at a very tender age, I found myself reading poems in Arabic. I mean, it's all about me reading poems to a lot of people, Arabic poems and songs. So that speaking part of me has been there from day one. So then in the class, like I'm just the one who reads the story in the class. I'm the one who the teacher wants. I mean, we used to have back then in my junior secondary school, we had teachers we call student teachers. And every time they come, they have like this assessors who come to assess them once in a while. So I'm always the go-to person. They already plan a question they want the assessors to hear. So I'm usually the one they're gonna pick. Hey Jamal, I'm gonna ask you this question, and you're gonna be the one to answer. So for me, speaking, talking, having discussions has always been part of me. Though, I mean, I never saw any inclination. I never really know so much about the voiceover industry. However, at some point, I was addicted to listening to radio, fast track on the BBC to be specific. So,
and around what year was this?
Around 2000 and 2, 3, 4. Yeah, that was when the whole fast track on 2003, 4, 5, 6 fast track on the BBC was a thing. So I'm always listening to fast track on the BBC, and that really built my interest. I love to listen to like top radio presenters speaking. It was typically sport, but however, I was also addicted to almost every single radio station because around then I was living in Port Harcourt, and we had radio. So that it's, I mean, I've always had inclinations to like anything that has to do with presenting voiceovers. And at university level, I started out doing live commentary, like live football match commentaries, and had a brief thing with the university radio. And I mean, it's always, my growing up has always been inclined to the voiceover. However, it's not what the voiceover industry is today. You understand? But there's always been an affiliation, kind of.
So I get the sense that you worked on radio. Tell us about a little bit.
On a brief level, not like on a full-time level, you know.
Yeah. So at what point did you realize that this is something called voiceovers, and this is a business or a career or a thing, really? At what point did you realize that?
So I'm just gonna pick it up from like the university level. At the university level, there was no really forms of recording, so I used to kind of run dry football commentaries because I was exposed to watching football at a very, very early age. In the times of Ajax had 2 or 3 Nigerian players, so I'm always gonna mimic like the commentators. So at the university level, I came into the university with that vibe, like comment. I want to just run dry commentary, so people are gonna sit down and listen to me, be like, "Oh boy, you," and stuff like that. So I graduated from that to kind of start doing live football commentaries. And I play table tennis at a professional level. And I also do live table tennis commentary. Basically, a large part of my life has been within sport. And sport has a part of sport is like the commentary and the presenting part. It has always been something I love. So it's kind of metamorphosized into that. When I left the university, I was doing like a full-time job, 9 to 5 here and there. But I just felt this wasn't for me, you understand? So at some point, I just kind of sat down and I was like, man, I need to know what kind of inbuilt talent I have. Jamal, what kind of talent do you have? And one day I just sat down and a voice just spoke into my head and was like, boy, you got a voice. You got a voice. And that was how like I started making research, and before you know, I had it in me before, you understand? But I felt like the proper industry, and I made a whole lot of research, especially like not even locally, like internationally, you understand? That was it for me. I dove straight into the industry and give it all I can.
And when did you come into the industry?
Say properly, like 5 to 4 years ago, like properly,
Around 2019, 2018, thereabout.
something like that, like properly, like that was when I came into the industry, because I'm still gonna separate whatever experience I have in the past with the voiceover industry, because I'm sure some of the older voiceover artists, some of the very experienced lads in the industry, what they really know to be voiceovers is kind of different from what it is today. Today, I mean,
I
the
agree.
industry is way bigger, has much more content, much more genre. You understand? So,
I
yeah.
agree. I agree. I agree. There's a lot of catching up that we need to do in the continent as regards voiceovers, and that's why we're having conversations like this. By the way, before we started recording this, I remember I was commenting and commending your audio quality, even in this podcast. It's not the most perfect, obviously. It's a phone, but then I then realized that snap, you're recording in your studio and you've got a great studio. I've seen it a couple of times, even on your Instagram posts. So this is your home studio, I believe.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes, it is.
fantastic! So fantastic, and that tells me you're a full time. It doesn't mean that you have to own a home studio to be a full time voiceover actor, but I know you as a full time voice actor, right? So, what has been that process like? First of all, you decided to come into the industry. At what point did you say, I would drop my 9 to 5 and go full time into voiceovers? What gave you that courage? Was it that you'd been doing some jobs before and you've gotten to a level where you can just pull off work, or you just said, whatever it is, I'm going to dive right in and just figure it out? What was that process like for you?
Thank you so much for that question. So I started taking up gigs alongside my 9 to 5 jobs. I didn't just come in straight away, because I knew I needed to invest. So I started out gradually. I think I started out with Behringer B2 Pro microphone, and I'm just going to record like in a makeshift room with a mattress behind me. I'm just trying to put together some form of things that can help produce a decent sound quality. So I mean, I bought a mic working. I used my money to buy mic, and gradually
Did you use the mic? Was it a USB mic? Sorry, I cut you there.
It wasn't. It was an XLR cable, like an XLR cable mic.
You really did your research.
Yeah. So I mean, I was working. I was trying to patch the work with the voiceover thingy, but I know that, hey, there's a big future in voiceover industry. But then I know I was going to risk it all. You understand? So at some point, I just decided to say, hey, this is the time to just go all in. I didn't have all I needed, to be frank. I didn't have my studio then. I didn't have a lot of things, So I just focused on it. And I'm telling you, ever since I made that decision, I'm happy. I wish I'd made a decision earlier.
Wow. That's a very interesting statement. You wish you had made the decision earlier. That means you'd have gone farther than where you are now. Now that I even mentioned your recording, let's talk about your recording setup. What do you currently use in your studio? What's your voiceover gear like?
So, I have like the most basic gear. I've got on my microphone currently, I have a Rode NT1 and a Rode NT1A microphone.
Wow.
And I use a Focusrite Scarlett 3rd generation. Got a laptop
interface.
Got a reflective booth, and what else? I've got monitors, like speaker monitors for live sessions. But then the biggest part for me, and most people don't really understand, it's all about the gears. Though, like in maybe weeks time, I'm going to overhaul almost all my gears and shift into something much more better, But for me, of all my gears and all I've got, I think my studio was the game changer for me. And I still consider it to be like the most valuable part of everything I have, because it just kind of brings everything together. If you have a decent mic, or you have the TLM 103, and TLM 103 is not easy to tame. If you use it in an open space, it's going to give you a much more terrible sound. So for me, of all my gears, I think my studio means a lot to me, much more than every other thing, because I could bring in any microphone into my studio and I'm still going to get a decent sound.
Wow, fantastic. I see you're really investing a lot into voiceovers. Okay, what's your daily routine like? Being a full-time voice actor, getting jobs, you ain't going to work. How do you... I'm a full-time voice actor, but this question is for you. What's your daily routine like?
Oh, well, my daily routine is very funny, because I don't sleep in the midnight. I mean, what we consider like the midnight in Nigeria, from my day starts around 12 p.m. 12 p.m. because I work through the night.
Do you mean 12 p.m. or 12 a.m.?
No, 12 p.m. like in the afternoon. Like my day starts like 12 p.m. You understand?
I see.
Yeah, and I mostly sleep around 5 to 6 a.m. and I wake up at 12 p.m. because around 12 p.m. it's like kind of harmony for the rest of the world. At 12 p.m. most part of the world are kind of awake. You understand? So that's when interaction with clients kind of start popping up. You understand? So I mean, for the past how many years, I don't sleep like in the midnight. I work through the midnight. So basically when my day starts already, maybe I have like a job to deliver or emails to reply. I hit the gym. I hit the gym every day. Back from the gym, just do my like normal my exercises. I mean, before I start any voiceover jobs, whatever, I make sure I do my mouth exercises, drink a lot of water. Yeah, and I mean, that's it. Because most times I'm always very busy, you know. So most part of my day, I just keep recording, and just giving it the best I can.
Now, you're giving me a feel like if you say you wake up 12 p.m. and you work till the night, I'm guessing that you do a lot of international jobs. What has that been like for you? Let me put it this way. You venture a lot into pay-to-play platforms. How has that experience been like?
Okay, so I mean, just like every single skill or kind of job out there, there are physical marketplaces in the world. The voiceovers also has a marketplace where buyers come searching for sellers, you know. So the pay-to-play site is the haven where all of the voiceover transactions or businesses go on. So for me, I mean, as a full-time voiceover artist, I'm taking advantage of every single voiceover platform out there to get jobs. So the pay-to-play site for me is like the number one go-to place, because even if you're going to end up with like direct clients, I mean, I have direct clients who hit me up on social media and all of my contacts, but then sometimes from pay-to-play site, you have clients who just get to know you from there and they just want to work with you directly every time, you know. So I think the pay-to-play site is a decent haven. Of course, there are pros and cons of the pay-to-play site, but most cases, I mean, that's where the transactions go on, and we don't have a choice, I mean, than to be there. So for me, I basically, most of my clients are actually like on the international front, because locally there are established voiceover artists who've been there, I mean, way before I even think of joining voiceovers. And I think they've kind of I wouldn't say dominated, but they have like a cordial relationship with a whole lot of clients within the country. So for me, most of my clients are on the international front, maybe people who need like an African accent job, or Nigerian accent, or West Africa accents, or Hausa or Yoruba. Yeah.
And from experience, the international market, they pay better than what we pay locally, right?
Yeah, very well. You have better rate. The rate international client will pay you is in tune with like the GV AA, like the global rate. So working with the global client, international client, is way more rewarding than locally. That's the reality.
All right. That was nice to listen to. Let's talk about, as an African venturing into pay-to-play sites. Do you think, because there's this assumption that when you get to pay-to-play sites, the competition is very fierce, and for African talents, they don't really get so much jobs. The requirements are usually American, Canadian, British accents, and as an African, you probably cannot speak English than the English, if you understand what that means. So your chances of getting jobs are quite low. But your experience seems like it differs from that ideology. So what are the chances of African voice talent in making it big on pay-to-play sites?
That's a very, very nice question. I totally agree with you that you can't be more English than a British person, and or like an American be more American than an American. I understand, and most of the pay-to-play sites out there are not designed for African talents, mostly because one of the most popular accents out there in the world of voiceovers, from my experience, is the North American accent. So, the North American accent is the most popular, and then there are few jobs for African talents. That's just the reality. But mostly, we're just trying to leverage on as an African talent. I'm going to be speaking from my own point of view. I always try to leverage on all the available platforms. I don't just put my egg in one basket. And I want to tell you like the ratio of, say, an American accent job to like an African accent job on one of the biggest pay-to-play sites, say like Voices. I'm going to tell you is like maybe 90 to 10%. That's very low. Well, for somebody, if you know your onions, like and the few auditions you have, if you kind of give them the best shot, I'm telling you, you could still make a decent earnings from them. But again, like I said, I'm leveraging on all the single platforms out there. So I'm not just banking on the pay-to-play side to pay me. I have direct clients who work with me. So I'm not just banking on them. So any African talents, knowing that, hey, there are few African accent jobs out there compared to every other accent, you might want to leverage on every single platform, all of the internet. So you are not going to feel like if you don't get a job on this pay-to-play site, you wouldn't feel like maybe jobs are not coming, because you've fixed your profile, you put yourself out there on every single platform. So for anybody, any client searching for African accents or whatever niche you have, and you understand I deliver voiceovers in Yoruba, in Hausa, in East African accent, in West African accent. So what I'm still gonna find, maybe if today no client searching for African accent job, there's gonna be one searching for Yoruba or Hausa accent. So your tentacles out, help you.
How long have you been on these platforms?
Well, I've not so long. Like I've been on these platforms, to be frank. Maybe earliest is 2019. Earliest, and I know a lot of talents who have been on these platforms for a long time. But earliest is 2019. But then again, I make sure I'm on most of the pay-to-play sites out there, and
it's working for you.
Like I said, it's not working as much how I would want it. Everybody wants more jobs. You understand?
Yeah.
And recently, like for the past almost a year now, I went premium on Voices. And I mean, I'm just saying this because I'm sure there are people who are going to listen to this podcast. So I'm being very frank here. So recently I joined Voices. It's not easy booking a job on Voices. Wherever you are, whatever accent you are, it's not easy booking jobs because you have to audition day in, day out. But again, done just a few jobs on Voices, but I've made more than my money back. But for me, this is my experience. I understand you put in that money and you are not going to make anything out of it. And I understand again that most times we are fighting across the world. Voiceover artists are fighting for better rate because you have this pay-to-play sites kind of slashing of the rate. You have middleman coming with the job to pay-to-play site. You have some certain percentage taken off. So we are not really getting what we're working for. You understand? Those are some of the cons of the pay-to-play site. But however, I mean, for me, going premium, first time going premium on Voices, I made my money back, and it's positive so far for me. But then there are so many other platforms.
Okay. All right. Tell me some of your biggest jobs so far. I'm guessing they were from pay-to-play.
Well, my biggest job, I mean, I'm always very cautious mentioning people I've worked for because, you know, there's NDAs going around.
No, okay.
On jobs. So I'm just gonna say that I mean, one of my biggest job, it kind of switched. I used to have my biggest job in the past. You understand?
Yeah.
Recently, I'll say there are two tech giants in the world that I was fortunate to work for, and so far that's like two of my biggest jobs.
Do you mind if I add? Because one of I remember you posted something, and when I checked it out, I was like, "Wow, this is good." That was you were on a project with Marvel. Am I correct?
Yeah,
Marvel Comics. You've forgotten.
That job was someone who was working on a Marvel what do they call them? Is it like manga or something? And he reached out to me on Casting Call Club, and kaboom!
I know there's Casting Club on Twitter. Is it via there or
I mean,
the website?
There's a full-blown voice acting platform called Casting Call Club. I mean, and it's majorly like voice acting. So, I mean, the client reached out to me and he wanted me to work, play the voice of Ngasi on the job, and I mean, that was it.
That was a brilliant one, by the way. I listened. I was impressed. You played the character of a servant to Storm, one of the main characters in Marvel. Am I correct?
I was the advisor to the king.
Oh, the advisor to the king. I mixed it up. Apologies. Sorry about that. But that was a great one. That was a great one. All right. Tell me about your worst experience in voice acting.
Oh, my worst experiences. You know, one of the biggest virtue one needs to have as a voiceover artist is patience. I mean, you can never freak out on a client. I've had some experiences that not so palatable. And I think one of the worst was working with a local client that after like a ton of takes on a job, and kaboom, they just disappeared.
Wow.
And and it's
a local client.
Yeah, and kaboom, they just disappeared. And I think till date, it's kind of like the worst experience so far, because usually you have if clients have revision, you know, you deal with it, you give them exactly what they want. But I mean, this was a job I did multiple takes, tons of takes for, and kaboom, they just disappeared. There are a lot of there are a lot of experiences that are not so sweet, but this in particular, considering like the amount of effort I put into it, was not really happy with it. But well, I mean, things happen. We need to just move on.
Great. All right. Let's come back home. Let's talk about the Nigerian voiceover industry. There's a lot of improvements that we need to do, to get to where we want to get to. But what is your own take about the Nigerian voiceover industry?
Oh, I think the Nigerian voiceover industry, I still keep saying Nigeria has some of the most brilliant voice talents. I mean, I know of. Nigeria has some of the best talents out there. However, I think the voiceover industry in the country needs better structuring and better. I mean, there needs to be like an harmony for the industry, and there needs to be like a standard for every single talent to follow. And this includes like a decent rate. Everybody can follow like a decent rate, just like the GVA. Everybody goes to the GVA rate from any part of the world. It's standard enough, and I think it's widely accepted. So I think locally there needs to be some kind of standardization within the industry. Already we have the talents. Already we have the voiceover workshop and the likes, who are kind of churning out talents. So the right trainings are there. However, there just need to be like a standardizations of rate and the modus operandi that's at par with the global standard. I think if we can get it right, we're good to go.
Great. So rates, they'll play a huge role in helping us develop as we want. Now that there are rates already, but the thing is, many of these things are not common knowledge, or they're not popular knowledge that many voiceover actors out there have in Nigeria. I still get asked that question. But the good thing is that the association that is responsible for voice talents in Nigeria, that's the Association of Voiceover Artists, AVOA. They're working on some things, and hopefully in coming months we can get some of these things out there. But it's good that we're talking about this. And now let's talk about certain developments. There was a time on Clubhouse when we were conversing, and then you mentioned doing NFT projects, and I was like, wow, I have not done any NFT projects. You're not the first person that will be talking about it, but you're the first person I think I can talk to one-on-one and ask about a project that has to do with NFTs. Tell me about that. What's the NFT voiceover relationship like? How does it work?
So basically, like you understand the NFTs kind of work within the metaverse.
Yeah.
And it's the voiceover. It's just like any other voiceover we do, it's just like any other voiceover genre we do. But the only thing is that it's going to be used on an NFT. And then I was actually thinking of creating like characters, speaking characters. I was thinking of doing something like that. But eventually, like, I just couldn't see through to it. However, I've seen some clients who have like trailers they want for their NFTs. I think I worked on a certain NFT by at Real Tarzan, the tribes of Ogun and all of those. So I was fortunate to be the voice of the trailer. So it was a trailer for an NFT. I think I've done like 2 or 3 trailers for NFTs. So it's just like any other voiceovers, but it's just that, hey, it's for like an NFT trailer. However, there are other NFTs that kind of maybe speaking characters that are going to be within the metaverse that are going to be used by those clients within the metaverse, and it's still the job of voiceover artists, to get them done. So it's basically like any other kind of voiceover or
Voiceover,
voice
yeah.
acting, but then it's just going to be used within the on NFTs within the metaverse spaces. And I think that there's been a lot of clamoring by talents across the world for people to be paid like rights, because these things are going to be used in the metaverse, and they might be raking in tons of money. So I think a
Yeah.
lot of talents are agitating for appropriate rights and royalties be paid on voices that are going to be used on NFTs.
Wow, I can't wait to get into that space as well and just explore it a little bit more. Wow, thank you, Jamaldeen. It's been a great conversation we've been having so far. But let's talk about some other things. Let's talk about your top 3 voiceover genre. What are your top 3?
My top 3, my number 1, narration. Narration, because I love narrations and I love doing them. Then commercials, and then trailers.
Fantastic narration. I've heard you on the 3, and I think you're doing absolutely well. When you're not voice acting, what do you do for fun?
I mean, the truth is, I thought, like, when I was switching to 9 to 5, from 9 to 5 to voiceovers, I thought maybe I'm gonna have a whole lot of time to rest. However, voiceover artists require a lot of work, and
I
you have to
tell
do
you, man.
a lot of work. And the truth is, I find myself working a whole lot of time. But the best part of it is I enjoy what I do. I enjoy it. It's not like any other kind of job. I enjoy it, whether no matter how many number of words I'm narrating or acting, I enjoy every single part of it. However, every single time I get, every available free time, I just like to spend it with my family. That's just the reality. In the past, I might be doing sport and stuff like that, but any available time is basically with my family.
Fantastic. I can relate with you, relate with what you're saying, because I also, as a full-timer, one would think you have all the time in the world, but I'm so busy, especially with production. That's another side to voiceovers that can be very, very time consuming. What advice would you give to upcoming voice actors in Africa?
Wow. Well, I think I just think anybody who is diving into voiceovers, I'm hoping that they have more of passion. I mean, people look at voiceovers from the money aspect of it, but it's way beyond that. Because you need to have a decent level of passion for it. Don't just dive into the voiceovers because of maybe you've seen some rates out there, because I've seen a whole lot of outrageous things, like, see, on TikTok, where someone is just gonna, you could just go to this site, fixing your profile, and you start making money on the platform. I think it's way different from that. I'm just gonna advise them, if they come into the voiceover world, they need to come with a lot of passion. That's very important. And after passion, they need to get like a decent training. Decent training. There are a lot of outlets there teaching people about voiceovers. And when they get the right training or the right coaching, I think the next step will be that, to make sure they don't, like an African people will say, you don't eat with every single one of your fingers. You must try and invest, because that might just be the game changer for you. As far as you keep making the money, you should try and invest in space, in gears. A space, say for example, if you are any upcoming talents who is able to break the barriers, save money, and invest in a space, it's a big game changer for them and can really help them to go far in the industry.
Yeah, I agree with you. Jamaldeen. It's been a fantastic conversation. So if you have any other thing you'd like to tell us before we come to the end of this podcast, this would be the best time to do so. So talk to us, Jamaldeen.
I mean, I'm just going to advise every single person out there, especially upcoming African talents or people who are intermediate or anybody within the industry, and you having some maybe difficulties whatsoever, I just want to let you know it's normal to have challenges within the industry. But I just want to remind you that, hey, this field is very rewarding. Keep going at it. Keep embracing a lot of doggedness. And I bet you're going to see like light at the end of the tunnel. Don't give up. Never give up. It's always challenging for everybody, even the people we look up to as like the very successful. Do not give up. As if you choose voiceovers, go for it 100%. I'm telling you, the reward is massive. Just put in your 100%, and you're gonna be good.
Wow, thank you so much, Jamaldeen. It's been a pleasure having you on this podcast. For every other person and potential clients that may want to reach you for jobs and all of that, how can they reach you?
Thank you so much. I'm currently, my website is unavailable right now, but once you just type in at Jamaldeenvoice, tap it on Google, on Instagram, on every single social media account, a social media out there, platform. You can reach out to me, whether it's on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, anywhere. You could just type in at Jamaldeenvoice and you will be able to reach me.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Jamaldeen. It's been a nice time interviewing you on this podcast. I've been looking forward to this for a long time, and we finally have it. Cheers, man.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure being here.
If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe, leave a comment, and tell someone about it. Follow the podcast on Everything VOs on all social media platforms. Thanks for listening, and see you on the next episode.